Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Joanne Butcher, and I am a business coach. I work with filmmakers and raising money. If you are a filmmaker, you may have already noticed that you are going to have to learn how to raise money. And that's what I do. So I teach filmmakers how to raise money. And I just created this new background for myself with my new book. That's me too. And I'm very uncomfortable with it, but I can't figure out how to take it off. So this is who I am today. So I am very, very excited to introduce my very own client, Tameka Citchen-Spruce. And Tameka is a fabulous filmmaker, but I don't like to do any introductions. I'm just going to get into asking my questions, and we're going to learn about you, and I'm going to learn things about you that I didn't know as well. So thank you for coming, Tameka.
Thank you for having me.
My first question that I always like to ask my guests is, when did you know that you were a filmmaker?
So I would say that I always kind of had the niche for, the arts. Ever since I was, a little child, my mom often, tells a story. And I remember this actually, that I wanted to go like auditions for plays. And one of the plays I wanted to audition for was The Orphan Annie, and to be in that production. So, so that's kind of like I always really wanted to be in the arts ever since I was younger.
Yeah, I was just like you. I was always interested in the arts, much to the great disappointment of my father, who would have much preferred if I'd liked physics. My father was a mechanical engineer. So it was so when did your interest in the arts get specifically to be about film?
Yeah. So I would say, really, I was like I said, I wanted to be in arts and media, but when the film incentives was here in Michigan, this was around like early 2000s, mid 2000s, when there was like an influx of, you know, uh, huge movie productions, so like Gran Torino, with Clint Eastwood, and a whole bunch of other films and TV shows were here in Michigan, particularly in Detroit. And so, like tons of us people, start beginning to get trained on how to be on the film set. So this was like right after I graduated from college, and I had a nonprofit at the time, and I also was with my now husband. And so, when you go into have a degree in a bachelor's degree in journalism, and so, if you don't know with journalism, if you want to get into the market, you usually have to go to a smaller city. And so, I really, because I had so much going on, it's like I can't do that. So I got to the film industry.
Oh, so you started out really being a journalist.
Journalist, theater, broadcasting, radio. Yeah, dabbled in all of that.
Oh, yeah, I that makes a lot of sense when I know your work. It makes a lot of sense that you started out in journalism, but you were like, nah, I'm not leaving the big city. I've always been like that my whole life. I'm like, no, I'm a city girl, sorry.
Yeah. So Family Sisters is right here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so interesting. I've been doing this podcast for a long time, and I don't think I've ever had anybody say that they really learned about film through the incentives and how that brought film to your hometown. That's very, very interesting. So you sort of start seeing film trucks on the street, and you start realizing, oh, wait a minute. One of the things I realized that happens to filmmakers is that one day they have the realization, oh, people make films, because we're so used to being consumers, but it turns out, oh, actually, people make films. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it was so nice. It was a transition for me because, like I said, I already had going having a degree in training about being a journalist was like broadcast journalism more so. So I already knew about like the video cameras and and I interned at CW50, and things like that, which I operate the cameras and then with theater and plays and know how to write plays and, things like that. So it was like a nice transition, for me to go into film because I already had, all this background already.
Yes, and I think that because you're a documentary filmmaker, it makes total sense that you would have started out in journalism and then got into documentary. Well, did you start in working in the field, or did you start working on your own projects in the field? How did that go?
Yeah, so I started with being a PA, like most people, you'd be a production assistant. And so I did a student film as a PA on set, and then I also did was an office PA for a TV show called The Wannabes. And so
Uh-huh.
yes, I was in as a production assistant, and then I got to like the 48-hour film festival, and then that's where from there I started doing my own films.
Right. Oh, the 48-hour film festival. That is such a great way that people start out with filmmaking, right?
Yes.
It's yeah, there's people who don't necessarily know anything. You just get together with a group of friends. And yeah, usually I would say usually if you live in a city, you probably can find something like a 48-hour film festival. Can you tell everybody what it entails to do that? To
Yeah.
make a film for that?
Yeah. So basically, that create your own team, and then you sign up, and then they give you like a prop that you're supposed to use, and your genre, of film, that you're supposed to create it. And so, you use that prop or that word or and the genre that you were given, and then when you're supposed to write, produce, direct, and all of that, and edit within 48 hours. So it's like you kind of throw there, and you just like we slept in, one of the cast members' house, and it got it done within 48 hours. And then they have afterwards, have all the films are screened at a local movie theater, and then they give out like awards and things like that.
Yeah, it's a very fun way for people to when I was living in San Francisco, there's somebody there who has been really a great beacon for filmmakers with the 48-hour film festival. And I've been to some of their screenings, and it's just a lot of fun. And then, of course, from my perspective, I was like, now you need to learn how to raise money. So you tried the 48-hour film festival. Then what did you do next? What was your next film?
And so, yeah, so after that, my own film, because in between that's when I did the PA work. But then I wrote a short film called Justifiable Homicide, which talked about the dangers of racial profiling from a Black suburban young male's perspective. And this was like 2017. So this was during the time of, Trayvon Martin being killed, and Michael Brown and those type of things. And my brother, my younger brother, he had some encounters, with police. luckily, thank God, it didn't get to the point that what we hear on the news, but he most definitely was racially profiled. And so that really, inspired me to, write the short film. So yeah, I got the cast together and, assembled the team and we, made the film.
That's great. It's so amazing to me. Filmmaking is such an incredible tool to be able to tell such important stories. And on the one hand, we hear about Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, later George Floyd, whatever in the news, but to hear a story about somebody and their life, and they're not just a news story. That's really great that you made that film.
Yeah, and it was very, like a pointed piece for me, and because like I wrote it, co-directed, I did was in all aspects of the film, and that was actually seen at different local film festivals, like the Trinity International Film Festival, and also ICU Awards. And from the ICU Awards, it was nominated for Best Short Film in Michigan, and actually the lead actor won the hottest upcoming actor award. And
Oh,
so, yeah, so I was really excited. I was so happy, that, we won and got nominated and, the lead actor, won an award from it and everything.
has
So it was really
has
great.
that
Yeah.
actor gone on to do more film?
Yeah, he still acts, and I think he's been in some films on Tubi and everything. So yeah, he's very
Oh, nice.
talented.
It's really amazing to think that. I remember years ago when I used to teach short film script writing, and one of the films that I used to show had this very famous actor in it from Law and Order. One of those guys you see all the time on Law and Order, and I remember being so impressed with it because I thought, he doesn't need to be in a short film. He doesn't need to be
Yeah.
somebody's art project. But what I really have learned is that actors like to act.
Oh
Actors
yeah.
really like to act. And so, that's great that you've got an up and coming actor in your short. Did you
Yeah.
find that outside of film festivals and things like that, were you able to show the film in places or to audiences that maybe would have been, I mean, I'm sort of imagining high school or college.
So no, not unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to really, push it out like I really wanted to, or that I intended to. But for the documentary I did produce, that yeah, that's when it went to the audience.
So what was the next film you made after Justifiable Homicide?
Yeah, so it was my girl's story. So that tells the story of two African American girls from Detroit fighting to be the young women they want to become. And yeah, that was another very much a passion project because I wanted to give a voice to the challenges of being a black girl from Generation Z, because their challenges are a little bit different than the previous generations. I'm a millennial. So, just showing what it is. And then also, one of the girls has a disability. And
Mm,
so, but with her disability, you could not see it, but, it was definitely there. And so, just to give um, a perspective on that, what it is to be, a black girl with this with a disability. And, because there's a lot of, girls that's like that. And there's a lot of people with disabilities and you won't know, unless they tell you. And that could be very challenging, in high school and things like that, with bullying or fighting and the different things that a lot of girls have to face these days. So that was very much a passion project. It was a long project for me because I did like self-finance most of it. So, it took me some time to get it done, but I'm very proud of it.
So how do you talk about yourself as a disabled filmmaker? How do you discuss that? Because now it's come out. So this was a film you had, were both the characters of the film disabled? Or was it
No, just one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you now I know you as a disabled filmmaker who's an activist who also makes films that are around disability. So how do you talk about that? How do you think about all of that intersection?
Yeah. So really, ooh, that's a good question. How to talk about myself. So I would say that the reason why I even, got into media and arts and, particularly in this with film is because of lack of representation of, disabled stories growing up. In the 90s, there weren't many disabled characters or anything like that. If it was, you had people who were not disabled, playing,
Right.
disabled, characters. And all of them was actually, besides Ray, well, there's some other films, but most of the time, was, white disabled people as well, the
Oh,
white
yes.
males, so
Right.
you really haven't seen anything like, from a intersectional lens, when it
Right.
comes to disability. And so I really see my role and, and working with others to bring more diverse stories, to life
Yeah.
from underrepresented
Do you
communities.
do you remember as a child, do you remember any disabled characters on screen? Because Ray was later. You weren't a child when Ray came out, I don't think, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Do you
early.
remember ever seeing any disabled characters on screen when you were a child?
Oh, when I think
I'm just
back,
because I can't think of any, but I just wonder if you noticed.
um, like when I was a teenager, there was a movie called Radio, and that was with Cuba Gooding Jr. was
Ah,
playing a man who was cognitively disabled, and he was part of like a football team, or he was like the water boy kind of type of situation and hometown hero. So it was that came out the late 90s, but like early childhood, like early, no, I can't remember anything.
right, right. And I think I've told the story before, but when I was in my 30s, I guess, I was living in Miami, maybe my 40s. I can't remember. I'm not good at time. But and I part of my job, I was the MC of a series of films by a African Afro-Cuban filmmaker called Sylvia Hidalgo. And the first film that we watched, I was supposed to be the MC afterwards and do a Q&A, and I couldn't speak. And it was the first time that I had seen my ancestors of African and Caribbean descent on screen. And I didn't understand why. I mean, you know me, Tameka, I can talk to anybody, but I was speechless. And I went the next day, I spoke to Sergio, and he put me on a reading schedule to read about slavery in all the different Caribbean islands. And Cuba had its own particularly vicious form of slavery. If slavery wasn't vicious enough, it was more vicious in Cuba. But
Yeah.
that experience, I will never forget that experience of seeing myself and my ancestors on screen for the first time.
Mm.
It's so powerful. I'm not sure that I understand theoretically. I see my friend Ariana is there. film professors like Ariana might be able to explain it, but that thing of seeing ourselves on screen is so powerful, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, so it's interesting also that because your disability is very visible, right? But you chose a character whose disability was not visible. That's interesting. So that the whole conversation about disability being visible or not visible, I think is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's, disability is so vast, it covers under the Americans with Disabilities Act that includes anybody, with a mental health condition. So that could be, bipolar, chronically depressed, anxiety, schizophrenia to, physical, like mine, like spinal cord injury, which I have, or spina bifida, or, say, to chronic illnesses like lupus and MS, to, people who are deaf, to, so it just runs the gamut. So technically they say like 1 in 6, 1 in 5, technically under the ADA has a disability, but, you wouldn't know that by looking at on the screen, that exists, even though I will say has gotten better, as far as with representation. You see more disabled, visible disabled characters on, commercials and, things like that, a little bit more TV shows and films, but still we have a long way to go to show the wide variety, and because with disabilities everywhere, it's in every demographic as well. So
yeah, 1 in 5 is a really high number, right? That is a very high number, 1 in 5 people.
yeah.
And this whole question about visible and invisible. The other thing that I learned for myself about disability, because as you know, I spent 7 years in bed, too sick to work. I mean, the only name for that is being disabled.
Exactly.
But now I'm not disabled. So that's another thing about disability that's strange, in that it's sometimes temporary.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes. So I never actually. I always say if I had been well enough, I would have applied for federal disability, but I was way too sick to go through that process.
Through that.
But
Yeah.
but I'm not sick today. So but that was something that I had to get my head around, because when I think about being a minority in terms of race or in terms of gender, those things don't change.
Nope, it doesn't. Yeah, but the disability, yeah, that's true. You get, especially those too who may have chronic illnesses, like lupus or MS, you have, different episodes and flares. So, you might have an episode where you can't walk, or you can't, you're extreme pain. And then with medicine or whatever, it goes away. You might spend like 10 years, being okay. And then it comes back, So yeah, disability it's a lot when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's and I will never forget that you said 1 in 5 people have a disability. That is really, it means basically everybody, like wherever we look this way, we look that way, there's a disabled person there, right? That's what that means.
Yeah, technically, yeah, but a lot of people, but it's hard for, I think, and it's difficult. I respect everybody's journey, but, I think as society, we see, when we think disabled, we automatically go to someone like me, say with a physical disability. So not everybody, but even if they may have technically medically a disability, they don't really take that upon themselves. They don't see it as an identity. You get what I'm saying? Or that's not how they identify. So,
Right.
And I respect that, because everybody kind of have to grow into it, or some people don't want to take that on, or so I'm not and say because I'm not like this, and I feel bad saying I have a disability when, it fluctuates and stuff. So everybody's in their different stage of awareness or whatever the case may be. But talking about, as far as with the under the Americans with Disabilities Act, are medically, 1 in 5.
Yeah, and when we're talking about identity, that's so interesting that you're saying, because there are other identities where people are more or less accepting of their identity. Like I very much identify as Black, but I'm white presenting, and there are a lot of usually white people will say to me, well, you don't look Black, as if somehow I'm not supposed to be, but it's like, okay, well, I am. But yeah, so there is with identity, there's always this, how much does somebody embrace it or not, and so with disability, I think it's a particularly tricky one, with all of the, like we were saying about, if you have an invisible disability. I know that for myself, I know that I tried to pretend for a long time that I wasn't disabled, and then I had to quit that. But I tried
Well,
for
I will make that happen. But okay, I give up. Yeah.
I kept, I remember the last job interview I went to, and my particular thing was migraines, and I just aced the first job interview. This was as director of development for the San Francisco Film Society, and so I went in for my second interview, and that day I woke up with a migraine. I couldn't even see, and I remember thinking, should I call them and tell them I have a migraine and that I regularly have migraines and that I'm really sick, or should I show up? So I showed up, and I couldn't function. I couldn't speak. And everybody looked at me really strangely, and I certainly wasn't brought back for a third interview. But it was the moment that I finally was like, oh, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Getting a job is not a possibility. I'm not there anymore, thank God. But yeah, I had to accept for myself. It's like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
So you made that film, and so that was a film that you said that you did do some work to get that to the audiences who needed to see it. What kind of things did you do with the film?
Yeah. So I was seeing at film festivals similar to the short film. But I also helped I created through assistance of Looky Look Pictures to develop a social impact campaign. And so, I partnered with different organizations to host community screenings and community conversations around the themes of the film. So that was in person and virtual, because this was like after the pandemic. Well, it was in 2021 when I started the social impact portion of it. So we did 2 discussions on mental health in Black girls, and then I did one with some international partners to do my girl story in the African diaspora, and that was a lot of fun to do. I had met women from Africa with physical disabilities and stuff, and had organizations, so they talked about their personal experiences as such. So that was a lot of fun.
Really exciting. And what did Looky Look Pictures help you with?
So it just really, it gave me the rundown on how to do a social impact campaign. Because I didn't have money to hire someone like I really wanted to. So I just took it upon myself to kind of learn the ins and outs of creating a social
Looky
impact
Look
campaign.
Pictures, just so everybody knows, Looky Look Pictures helps filmmakers create social impact campaigns. And how would you describe what a social impact campaign is, Tameka?
Yeah, so it's what is the goal, of the film? Like what do you um hope the film to achieve as far as like tangibles in your audience? So, for some, like for my girl story, the campaign was to increase more awareness of, the issues that Black girls, face. And so that's what, like, I know Black girls face mental health, challenges and stuff. So that's when, I partner with that and then the African diaspora. So it's like whatever, goals that you want to achieve, with the film.
Yes. So when you're making a documentary, just for anybody who's listening, when you're making a documentary, well, so this in this case, Tameka's film was for Black girls and looked at mental health issues, but it could be about anything. And there are even many fiction films that have causes attached to them. I have a client who made a fiction film about getting a cancer diagnosis, right? So there are so many times with films that have an educational component or cause, that you can create a social media impact campaign around them, and it's just a very much a part of documentary filmmaking today, but it can be useful for fiction filmmakers as well. So it's almost as much as thinking about making the film, right? It's
Yeah, really, because I think that is somewhat the, I would say mistake, that might not be the best word, but that is something that I definitely believe that filmmakers need to think about, especially, because I specialize in producing and writing, but right now it's really mostly producing. And so, it's thinking like, who's my audience? Because you can, take a, make a film all day, but the
yeah,
people don't get to see it. And
yeah,
the audience that you're targeting don't get to see it, then it's just, you just hold on to it and on your hard drive, you know what I'm saying? And things like that. I think a lot of us, we make film, we do it because we have a message or, we want to entertain or whatever the case may be. So there's a good business case on, having a social impact campaign and having your audience in mind, at the beginning of the process. So, who the film is for and,
yeah.
things like
I
that.
mean, you made that film for Black girls,
Mhm.
right? So you want Black girls to see that film. That's what a social impact campaign is. And so it sounds as though with that film was when you started to learn what a social impact campaign can do for your film to get it to the audiences that you really want to see it. And I wanted to know, Tameka, was it before that film or after that film? When was it that you really started to work as a disability advocate? And because I know it's part of your work and your film work, and how did that all come together?
So that actually came before the
Ah,
films.
okay.
And so the way I was introduced to disability, as far as with being an activist, I always had to like advocate for myself.
Yes.
But but for other people was when I ran for Miss Wheelchair Michigan in 2006. And so
Ah,
I was 21 years
uh-huh.
old, at the time. And I did not initially win, but
How dare
you know,
they?
no, I was really
Dare
young.
they?
There's a lot of people that was really, much older and more experienced. So that's why, they won, but they, quit. So the person at the time, chose me to represent Miss Wheelchair. So that's how I became, Miss Wheelchair Michigan. And so going into that space, and seeing, all these, women, in wheelchairs for the first time. And, and then also there was like a crew here in Detroit of Black women with spinal cord injuries. And so that's really what ushered me into, disability justice and rights.
Wow. And that Miss Wheelchair, Miss Michigan is just, it's so celebratory and so fun instead of, I think that's probably a new thing that didn't exist like when you were a child also, right?
Yeah. Well, Miss Wheelchair has been around, they said since the mid-70s. And I think that's when there was Miss Wheelchair competition. But they didn't, I didn't know that even existed, Yeah, I know that when I was a child, but it was around at that time.
But I just think it's like a celebration and a fun way to enter into disability rights advocacy, right? What did you do after that? What was the next thing that you got involved in after that?
And so from there, my platform speech, because that's, one of these, if you run, for Miss Wheelchair, any type of pageant, but this is a competition. So competition, you have to have a platform. Like, what do you hope to do, if you won? And so my thing was ending abuse for women with disabilities, because like statistically, people with disabilities, and in particular this case, women, are at higher risk of being abused. And there's a large percentage that do experience domestic violence, or, sexual abuse and things like that, which it like, you don't even really hear about. But so from there, I started with the assistance of the women that I told you about earlier, started a organization, a 501c3 organization called Women in Power. And so, I was like 22. I've always been ambitious. So, I was 22 years old.
Women in Power, that's awesome.
Yeah.
22 years old.
Yeah. So that's what we started. And to carry out the mission of empowering, women with physical disabilities, and and then from there, start doing more work.
Such as, tell me more.
Yeah. So from there, and that's where I met, actually at the Miss Wheelchair competition, was Lisa Franklin. And so around that time, Lisa founded Words on Wheels, a metropolitan Detroit. So, and it's still in existence today. Women Empowered isn't, but Words on Wheels is. And so, so I've really worked with her as well to start talking about the issues that disabled people in Detroit, were experiencing. So through, her support and organization, we spoke out against, for accessible and affordable housing, which was, but still is a major issue in Detroit and, in the United States, period, for a lot of people with physical disabilities. So that, voting. So I worked with Words on Will, the ACLU of Michigan, on voting access, and work with the city of Detroit to make, the voting stations accessible, which is another, issue for people. And then criminal justice reform. And so, I advocated for a Black autistic young man to drop the charges in two cities. And so, I did that. So, just really focus on health equity. That's another issue that I'm very passionate about, to talk about, health access and things like that for people with disabilities.
Oh, and here's another question. So I know that you were part of the Respectabilities Lab. Is that the right name for it? Am I saying the name correctly? Okay,
Mhm.
when did that come in as well? Was that
Yeah,
before your first film or after your first film?
now that's after. So that was in 2021.
And what
So
is
yeah,
that? What is that program?
yeah. So respectability, is focused on disability inclusion, but one of the areas is people in entertainment. And
Mhm.
so it's a fellowship that they have every year where they take like about 25, people with disabilities and you learn everything about the entertainment industry. So it's myself and like I think it was like 24 other people with disabilities across the country. So
Right.
this was like a virtual program, which they still have. And then they also have one in person, I think in LA, a cohort. That teaches you things about the film industry.
Fantastic. So what was your next film that you started to work on after
Yeah.
the
Yeah. And so, which is the things that's in development now, because like I said, Black Girl Strike took a long time to do. So I had to, clean up the loose ends and, finish the social impact campaign. And so I have two things in development right now. One of them is where, I met you is hashtag autistic while Black. And so I'm working with Diane Wright, Jay Wright, who also I met at the Respectability Lab. And so we are doing a feature-length documentary on, a collective, powerful personal stories of Black autistic life and showing, the testament of resilience and, the power of the human spirit. So, really excited about that. We have a really great contributors that who will be, sharing their story and such. So we're in the fundraising portion of that. And then
and
also
that
I
film,
have,
one of the
yeah,
things I want to just say about that film that's really fun about that project is that there are a lot of celebrities that you're working with on that project. And again, talking about representation, there are a lot of celebrities who have disabilities, and I think today they're more able to speak out and to be public about those disabilities. And those are some of the people that you have involved in that documentary.
yes, we definitely have, celebrities and, some of their children,
Yeah.
attached to it. So yeah, really, excited, to get that, fully fundraised and, be able to move that into, production, hopefully, sometime, the end of next year. So, have that. And then also I am co-producing a digital series where I hope to, get it on a network, what is called Divas in the City. And so that follows, six Black women with physical disabilities taking their city by storm. And so, that's another exciting, thing. And I actually received some grant money to, launch yes, that's the hardest part of filmmaking to me is the fundraising, portion of it. So, it will be airing, sometime next year on YouTube, and then, like I said, hoping to, get it on a network, after that. But, just to see, more diverse representation, of disabled life, of, Black life and things.
Yeah. And so it sounds to me as though those two projects are probably pretty much full time. I just would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your life because this is not all that you do.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say like, what do you do? I don't know. I make time for it. That's my answer. I make make time for it. So
I just,
yeah.
I'm always joking when I meet filmmakers and they say, well, I don't know if I work with you, if I have the time. And I'm like, I have clients who put everything aside and work on their films. Awesome. But Tameka is working on a film, a series, and she has a full-time job, a husband, a kid, 2 parrots. No, I'm making that up.
Yeah, dog is laying right here next to me. Fox Terrier.
So Tameka has a very, very full life, and it's amazing what you do and how much you get done, and also how incredibly precise and professional your work is. I think it's really impressive because you really have. I wonder how did you figure out how to balance so many things in one little life?
Yeah. It's really about time management and just having kind of like a schedule, of when to, get things done. So typically, my day job, I dedicate, my time during the day mostly, to that, unless there's things that come up, I can take an hour here and there, to do stuff. But mostly it's, doing a day job in the evenings, once the kids get home, I make sure they good and stuff, and then I schedule meetings more so in the evenings and on the weekends. So yeah, I do put in a lot of hours. So that's the thing, but I do make time, make a point of self-care and during the weekends I, yeah, that's important. And I like to go out with my family and take my kids to the movies or, see my niece and nephew and stuff. So, make sure that there's time for that
Now,
as
how
well.
old are the kids now?
Yeah, so they 10 and 11.
Oh, are they old enough to start helping you on your film projects yet?
Yeah, my daughter said, I want to be an actor. And she, well, you want to act, do theater. I want to do theater. I said, well, that's the trick. The training wrong, but yeah.
I'm always teasing my clients with kids. I'm like, when are they going to start working on your films?
Yeah. They definitely have an eye for it a little bit sometimes.
Right. Well, I like to save the last few minutes for questions. If anybody has a question, I'd love to see what questions you might have for Tameka. Come on, camera, unmute, and ask your question. I think Great TV is going to ask a question.
Good afternoon.
Hello. What's your name?
My name is Boyga. It's actually Ade Boyega Ade Share.
Boyega.
But they
Yes.
call me Boyga.
Boyga.
Yes. So, Tameka, I take it you do all of your writing.
Yeah. I wrote Justifiable Homicide. So, yes.
Okay. So the question is, in the course of your writing, has there ever been a time where you were trying to express a certain emotion and it came out and it was really heavy on you and it kind of overtook you? Because as I was writing at one time, one of the scenes just brought out those tears in me. I started weeping on my own, and had nothing to do with my situation or anything at all. It was just that actual scene. So I'm just wondering, with your situation, have you ever encountered anything like that?
Yeah, in a sense, I don't like necessarily a physical reaction, but I do know what it's like to, I think, to be an effective, writer and everything. I do see the story or the scene in my head, and and I do kind of like experience that emotion, in a sense. It's not like I never like physically like cried or, physical reaction, but I definitely, as I write a scene, can feel what that emotion is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny. My friend is a therapist, a very recent therapist. And we were talking the other day, and he said, "Oh, Joanne, I forgot how well you visualize things." But that's exactly, I think, what Tameka was just saying. It's like, as filmmakers, it's very common that we are people who really visualize things. And so even though you were saying that the scene was not really about your situation, but you could see it so clearly that it could provide the emotion that it did. That's what I heard in what you said.
Yeah, it's very, very common.
It was so real. So I suspect it was a very well written scene. Keep on writing.
Yeah.
Keep on writing. Who else has a question for Tameka?
Hi, I have a question.
Hi,
This is
Pamela.
Hi. I'm enjoying your program. Beautiful. My question is to Tameka. Who is your favorite filmmaker and writer? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Pamela.
Hey, honey.
What? Oh, I have a couple people that I really, respect. So I really, as far as like, the message that they be sending in the films and how they do things. I like Spike Lee, of course. I think he's really like the kind of like the go-to, with filmmakers and such, who I actually got a chance to meet when I was at Oakland University. It was very intimidating experience. It's like, you see them, you see their films, and he's looking down on me with his glasses. Through his glasses, like, oh my God. But yes, because I do film, but yeah, Spike Lee, I love, his approach to it. It has a very, starts with directing, a very classic, signature look that he gives, to his films and, his characters and things like that. So I like Spike Lee. I like Clint Eastwood too. I think his films are, really good, really tight, and just how he does his, storytelling and like Gran Torino, I love that film. And another person that I really admire is Ryan Coogler, as well, that did Black Panther and Judas and Fruitvale Station, which was similar to, Justifiable Homicide in a sense. And so, I really like his way of storytelling. Ebony DuVernay is really good. But yeah, those are the top. I would say Clint Eastwood, Ryan Coogler, and Spike Lee.
That's interesting. I don't think I ever thought of Spike Lee as a classic, but you're right, and then Clint Eastwood as well, this sort of very classic way of making films. So lovely to meet you, Pamela.
Hi, Tameka. My name's Diane, and I just I apologize. I couldn't make it to the beginning of the call, but I just so what I'm curious about is that obviously you're such an inspired filmmaker. So what is your day job that keeps you from, being a filmmaker 24/7? Because it's got to be something that you're really passionate about,
Yeah. And so I work for a statewide nonprofit organization, Michigan Disability Rights Coalition. And so, we do, I work particularly in the leadership development program. So right now my task is to work with nonprofits on disability inclusion in BIPOC communities. So yeah, I mean, I really love, working at, Michigan Disability Rights Coalition, but it is my ultimate goal, with the filmmaking to make that and speaking and advocacy my full-time job. So I'm kind of transitioning, into doing that full-time. But with film, the issue is that it's not steady pay, you know what I'm saying? And things like that. So especially if you want to do your own, projects and such. So, it's like you have bills to pay and it's just sometimes it's unsteady. With having kids in the family, I need more of a steady income. But I'm, going towards that direction where, filmmaking and advocacy and speaking will be my full time.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
No, Diane, that was a great question, because I think that on this podcast that I do, I'm always interested in, well, how does a filmmaker make a living? And so I think what Tameka has done is really create this it's sort of seamless, right? So the disability rights advocacy plus the filmmaking that looks at disability plus the social impact work with the films that looks at, right, it's all tied in. And so it all makes sense, even if, yes, ultimately it would be great to only be doing your own work, but it really makes sense. Whereas I think a lot of times filmmakers are having this kind of jarring experience where they're making money somewhere that doesn't quite fit with the right. So it's great that you have been able to create that, and you can too, Diane.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. Does anybody else have a question? Emily. No. Who else is here? Alberta, Dr. Alberta, Laurie D. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Tameka. It was really good to, oh, did somebody say something? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Tameka, thank you so much for coming. It was such a pleasure working with you. Such a pleasure doing a podcast with you. And yeah, I look forward to seeing your film, seeing your series. Please let me know how things are going. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people here who would love to pitch in and help. If you, when are you going to do a crowdfunding campaign for the film? Yeah.
Yes, I will be doing that. So they can go to right now to my website, Tameka Citchen-Spruce.com, and just do like maybe like sign up for the newsletter, and in that way, I'll let everyone know when that will be. It will be soon.
Yeah, let's all sign up for Tameka's newsletter. Did I spell that correctly in the chat there, Tameka? Tameka's,
yeah.
We have lots of names, so it's hard to keep up. So yeah, let's all sign up for the newsletter, and then we'll find out when you're going to do your crowdfunding campaign. But thank you so much for taking time with us today. Thanks everybody for coming and listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Oh, I didn't even talk about my book. That's why I have this. My book is going live tomorrow. I can't believe it. My first book. I'm already planning on my second one. But yeah.
Right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.